Confidence, confidence, confidence. Confidence impacts everything, our thoughts, our words, and our actions. The good news is today's guest is a confidence expert, and she believes confidence can be learned and developed. Today's episode is brought to you by The Confidence Project, confidenceproject.com, and 3 books, The Now Hello and The New Hello by Tracy Hooper, and as always, Conversations, How to Manage Your Business Relationships One Conversation at a Time by yours truly, Ivan Farber. For more information, visit conversations.biz. All 3 books are available on Amazon, Audible, and Kindle. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Conversations About Conversations. On this show, we talk with movers, shakers, and difference makers about the conversations they lead in the world. Our guests are business leaders, authors, speakers, podcasters, and more. We're building a community of like-minded professionals who appreciate the importance, significance of meaningful conversations. Today's guest is Tracy Hooper. Tracy is the founder of The Confidence Project. Her prestigious client list includes Nike, Intel, Microsoft, Merck, Daimler, and Kaiser Permanente. She leads dynamic presentations for high-achieving teams of any size, so hopefully the size of me and you, the listener. She advises executives and professionals in a wide variety of industries. Her work results in changing cultures so that people can elevate their presence, communicate with others, and work together better. She's been a TV news reporter, anchor, producer, voiceover professional for corporate clients, including Disney and NFL films. She's coming to us live from Portland, Oregon. Please help me welcome Tracy Hooper. Tracy, welcome.
Thank you, Ivan. Pleasure to be here.
Before we begin, I want to say thank you to Patrick Galvin, who is a mutual friend of ours and 2-time guest on the show. Patrick, thank you for connecting us.
Yes. Thank you, Patrick.
Tracy, I want to give you the opportunity to make an opening statement. And as part of your opening statement, I'd like you to talk about the main conversations that you're leading in the world.
In a nutshell, the conversations really are about good communication and civility. I think we would all agree that our world has become contentious and divided and difficult, and yet there is civility in the world. And if we can bring mindfulness to our conversations, making people feel like we're really listening to them by putting our cell phones away when we're in a conversation, looking people in the eye. Conversations are the key to civility.
I love that. One of my definition for the word conversation is my own Latin etymology special, and that is con means with, verse means song, and sation means to plant.
Ooh.
So in a civil fashion, we plant together a song.
I love that. I may steal that from you, Ivan.
Feel free. Feel free. Tracy, what I had in mind for our agenda is threefold. First fold is to talk about confidence in general. The second is to understand the Confidence Project, your business, as well as to learn a little bit about your books, The New Hello and The Now Hello. And then finally, you have a tremendous number of tips, techniques that are available to the public on YouTube. And I want to take the time, though, to give you on this platform to talk about them. So that's what I had in mind for our agenda.
Let's do it.
All right. Speaking of definitions, what would you say is your definition of the word confidence?
Everyone thinks that, or many people think that you're born with confidence. People just have a type A personality. They have a big personality. They can be the largest person in the room. And there is a part of confidence that's in our genes, that's in the personality we were born with. But the rest of confidence comes from taking action. And that was a game changer for me when I was really looking into what does confidence mean. It means taking action, make mistakes, adjust, refine, repeat over and over again. The reason that teams are in the World Series or the Super Bowl, or the reason why Jerry Seinfeld seems so comfortable on stage, is because they have practiced and rehearsed and refined it over and over again. And that's the same way for us. If having a conversation is important to you and you're uncomfortable having conversations, if you see yourself as introverted or shy or reserved or quiet, there are ways that you can develop confidence around having conversations. And with enough practice, it can become second nature. And then that lowers your anxiety and you can move forward with that skill that you want to practice.
What inspired you to create the Confidence Project?
9 years ago, I had some friends who had started a women's leadership program in Portland, and they had invited applicants from all over the country. And they selected 6 young women who moved here, who lived in community. They had paid internships and did volunteer work on Fridays. And then they offered them extracurricular opportunities. And they said to me, knowing my background in TV news and other skills that I have, Tracy, would you host an etiquette evening for these young graduates? And I said, absolutely. Anything to support civility in the world. And I thought I would go over, how do you introduce yourself? How do you introduce someone else? How do you start a conversation with someone you don't know? How do you keep it going? How do you get out of a conversation? How do you know when not to enter a conversation? And these young women looked at me as if they had never heard this information before. So after 20 minutes or so, I said to them, would you like to have a workshop of sorts with your friends, and you can bring them over and we'll practice these skills? And they said, oh, Tracy, that would be great. Ivan, in 1 month, I had 30 young people in my living room. And I looked around the room and I said to everybody, does anybody know why you're here tonight? And somebody raised their hand and said, I heard this is a crash course in becoming a grown-up. And I thought, there's a business in this. It's not enough to be educated. It's not enough to learn skills in school or your trade. You need to add to it those skills that give us a chance to connect with people one-on-one or in a group. And that's how the Confidence Project started. And I started with young women. And then I thought, well, men need to know this too. I expanded it to young men. And then as you mentioned, I'm at big corporations and small institutions all over the country.
What had you select the word project as part of it?
Well, I am so glad you asked that question. I have a wonderful colleague named Sarah Garrison, and she and I had worked together on some other work before the Confidence Project was a thing. And I said, Sarah, I have this idea and I don't really know what to call it. And we were batting back and forth about what it might be. And then she said to me, you know, I have started this project with my sister. And I said, oh, that's what we'll call it. We'll call it the Confidence Project, because it's always in process. And people say to me, are you always confident? And the answer is absolutely not. I'm confident in my lane. I know certain skills that are beneficial to business and life. But if you asked me about what it takes to be an electrical engineer or to be a teacher or to be a physician's assistant, I wouldn't know. But these are skills that everyone in every industry, organization, profession can learn. And that's the exciting thing, that confidence can be learned. And when I tell people that, I can see the light bulb go off. They think, oh, I don't have to be born that way. I don't have to have learned that when I was a child. I can learn it now. And that's the great part about it. It's an equal opportunity project. It doesn't matter where you went to school or what zip code you live in or what your job title is or what your age is. Confidence can be learned with practice.
I love that. I appreciate the thinking that went into it. We are all leading projects. You know, in my vernacular, it's leading a conversation, but what is a conversation other than getting people aligned to create and fulfill on a project? We are all works in progress and we are all projects.
Yes.
And we have to drive that with our conversations with ourselves. But I was kind of thinking, okay, so project, it could have been program, endeavor, organization. Now, my vision and this is on my bucket list, is to create Conversations University,
Oh,
like a full 4-year degree. And you, of course, need to have a major in confidence. Like you couldn't have a school of conversation without a degree in confidence. So one of the things that has been great about the podcast and having conversations about conversations with people like yourself who are experts in confidence and conversations is gathering up a faculty. And you would be a tremendous faculty member, maybe even dean of like the School of Confidence. So welcome to that idea.
well, thank you for that invitation. One of the skills I always teach is to ask the magic words. And the magic words, in my view, are what, how, and tell me more. Words that provide an open-ended opportunity for a conversation. What's the most important part of your job? What do you find to be the most challenging part of working in a hybrid environment? How did you get into the industry? How did you happen to come here tonight? What do you think of the speaker? What, how? And then tell me more opens up the conversation so that people have a chance to expand. As Barbara Walters said one time, it's not the first question that counts in a conversation, it's the second. Because the second shows that you are listening to that person. And isn't that what we all want? We want people to listen to us. And when we ask that follow-up question, people automatically feel, oh, she cares about me. She's curious about what I have to offer. And that's where I think that we can develop that confidence about creating a civilized society. And the more we listen and follow up and ask those big questions, the more open people are to giving us their perspective and knowing that it will be valued.
Well, we have what and how in common. I'm a big proponent of open-ended questions. And of course, what and how are the best of them. I have a whole chapter in my book about using questions skillfully. Tracy, where do you see the Confidence Project headed?
The opportunities to expand this work are endless. I'd like to see it headed anywhere where people talk. I took the Confidence Project to Rwanda in 2016 to work with the next generation of African leaders. And what I found was, and I taught them skills about connecting to each other, shaking hands. And of course, in the US, we look people in the eye. We consider that to be a professional skill that you use when you're talking to people. In Rwanda, you're told not to ever look your elders in the eye. It was a very interesting opportunity for me to see how different cultures interact. But what we have in common is that everybody wants to be able to talk about themselves. And I believe everybody's favorite subject is themselves. Therefore, when we ask those open-ended questions, that tell me more opportunity, people feel like they can talk about what matters to them. And I see the Confidence Project as being available and necessary and relevant all over the world. And I've been able to take it, through corporations, I've been able to take it far and wide, especially with the idea of what words can we lose that make us sound hesitant or uncertain, and how can we replace them with words to use that have more impact in a conversation, in a presentation, when speaking with a prospect or a client. Anytime you can use words that have impact, that make you memorable, people will want to have a larger conversation with you.
Tell us about your books.
Well, the long and short of it is that when COVID hit, I looked at my business coach, because my work heretofore has always been in person, meeting with large groups of people in conference rooms and large buildings, and having people break into small groups and practicing skills to connect with each other. And when COVID hit, I sat there with my chin in my hand, talking to my business coach, and I said, I don't know that I can continue. I'm all about in person. I guess I need a new hello. And he said, oh, Tracy, that's the name of your book. I said, Mark, I'm not writing a book. He said, yes, you are. And it'll be called The New Hello. And I thought, okay, how do I do that? He said, take one of your presentations and start writing. Well, in my experience, that's a lot harder said than done. I started writing the book and really wrote it in response to the pandemic. How could we meet and greet each other and have meaningful conversations and interactions in a COVID world? And almost immediately after the book was published, I thought there's so much more to talk about, because at that point, after my book was published, then several months later, we had a vaccine and offices were opening up and people were beginning to do more in-person work. So I immediately began writing the Now Hello. What is the confidence playbook now? And I feel it is a more complete version of how do you build confidence? How do you connect with people one-on-one or in a group? And I must say, I love that book.
Both new and now are capitalized in your titles. Is there any significance to capitalization in your titles?
Only that I wanted people to recognize the new hello. What are we doing in this new world of work? And the now hello, what is the playbook now? How do we, what do we say and what do we do in a remote, in-person, and hybrid world? What do we do now? And I'm getting that question from my clients. They're saying, I don't know how to greet people. What do I do if someone still doesn't want to shake my hands? How can I read my hand? How can I read the body language of people? And how can I develop a good relationship with someone who I've never met before? I've been working for a client, a new client this year, new to me this year, for 10 months. And I just met that client for the first time last week in Chicago. It was an amazing experience because we have developed a fantastic working relationship virtually. How can you do that? How can you network virtually and really feel like you're developing relationships? That's the now part.
I got it. I have an interesting experience in that I work as a relationship manager at a privately held financial services firm, and I do the majority of my work over the phone. And when I say the majority, I've had 21,000 conversations in the last 15 years that I've been keeping track, only 350 in-person meetings, and only 22 video calls. So one of the things that I've done is learn the skill of conversation in a very pure form, because I don't have any of the visual cues that you would have face-to-face. And I think that's really helped me, because it really helped me to practice the skill and art of conversation, because that's all I have. I don't have the body language reading. So
That's amazing. So you're listening, I'm sure you're listening very carefully for tone of voice and speed, pace, etc.
Yes. And you get into the words that people use. Like I'm listening for visual, auditory, or kinesthetic word choice. There's a lot of different meta programs I'll listen for. And then you have to become really good at probing, because otherwise people don't talk. But you do have an advantage on the phone that you don't have when you can look at people in the eyes. And that is, people are often freer when they don't have to look at you. Mm-hmm. Like if you want your teenager, I have a teenager. If you want your teenager to have a serious talk with you, the best place is in the car, because you both have somewhere else to look.
Exactly.
And so being in financial services, I'm able to have really intimate conversations with people without having to look. They don't have to look at me and have me like get into it. So it's been just really interesting. But yes, your work was an in-person thing. And then kudos to you for completely re-engineering and retooling your business.
Thank you. It was by force, and it has worked out well. It's given me a chance to extend the Confidence Project around the world, for sure. I'll get back to something you said about the phone, Ivan, which is when I love speaking on the phone, because then I can take notes. As you mentioned, I'm a news reporter by training, and I can't talk without a pen and pencil in my hand. And when I'm on the phone, I feel free to take notes. And that way I can remember the conversation. I can put in quotes what people have said. And I love communicating that way. I communicate by Zoom because that works for people. But when I'm doing a follow-up, especially a follow-up, if I can be on the phone, I'm quite happy to do that. And I'm finding that there are a lot of young people in particular who have what I call phone freeze. They're afraid to pick up the phone. They don't know how to start a conversation. They don't know what to do. And I think that is a generational piece because they use their phone to text. I was speaking with these are engineers who are fairly new in their career. I would say 5 or 6 years out of college or graduate school. And I said to them, you need to be able to code switch. You do not want to be saying, hey, Ivan, when you're sending an email to an SVP. Mm-hmm. You need to say, hello, Ivan. Hi, Ivan. Greetings. Good morning. Good afternoon. In my view, hey is too casual for a professional interaction. People disagree with me. That's fine. But I always tell people it's easier to go from professional to casual than it is from casual to professional. So err on the side of professional, at least for the first hello.
That sounds like it could be the next book, is the first hello.
The first hello.
Speaking of books, this is a curveball. I didn't tell you this question was coming, but what other books on confidence do you recommend?
I have a book I love called The Confidence Code by Katty Kay and Claire Schiffman. I think that's her last name. It's written particularly for women. However, I find it to be very helpful for anyone who wants to improve their confidence. And it's a lot around how do you speak up when you're interrupted? How do you interject into a conversation and not feel as if you're being rude? One of my clients is from Africa and told me you're not allowed to speak back or interject to your elders. Well, now she's in America, in the US, with a prominent job with a health organization, and she's having to learn that skill. But even if you are from this if you grew up in a family where you were not taught that it was okay to interject into a conversation, then you get into business and people think you don't have anything to offer. That's a skill that can be learned. I could go on and on about that because I did learn a lot of my skills in my family growing up, which is why I know it can be taught. My mother was the original talk show host. There are 6 children in my family, and everybody got a chance to talk and everybody had a chance to listen. And we went back and forth asking questions about each other's day, the soccer team or the spelling bee or the science experiment, whatever was going on for people. And that was a great lesson in learning how to have the give and take of a good conversation. And that's where I'm thinking about it now. That may be where I learned to interject and not get shut down, but in fact, invited to say more.
In knowing I was going to ask you a question about books on confidence, I looked at my list of books that I've read about confidence. And I've read 2 books. One was called Confidence by Russabeth Moss Cantor. And
she's terrific. Yes.
It's a terrific book. It's more organizational in its orientation. She talks about different organizations having confidence. Actually, she talks about my team, the Philadelphia Eagles, and how they brought confidence to that organization. And then the second book I read on confidence was called The Confidence Game by Maria Konnikova. And that's a game about the psychology of con artists, how fraudsters know how to manipulate human emotions. And you certainly are not someone who is standing for manipulation, but there is a fine line between, we all want to influence. I always say if Dale Carnegie had called his work How to Influence Friends and Manipulate People, it would have come across differently, although there's a whole tangent we could do about my belief about the word manipulation. But either way, there's a lot of value in both books. They're not core to, I think, what you have in your books or my book, but organizationally, it's important to understand confidence for sure. And in your work with the Confidence Project, you're doing work for big corporations. And then also knowing con men, not just because you want to influence, but you don't want to be conned either. And we all are susceptible in some way, shape, or form to being conned.
And I will add to that, that one of the tenets of the Confidence Project is to encourage people to practice one skill every 30 days. Psychologists tell us it takes 30 days to break a habit, 30 days to form a habit. If there's something you want to learn how to do, step into a conversation, speak up for yourself if you've been interrupted. Practice that, I say, in a low-level lab with your friends or your family, where you can practice stepping up and speaking up for yourself, and then taking that on the road, so to speak, and road testing it for 30 days. And you'll have a chance. And I give a lot of language in the Now Hello about what to say and what to do. And if you practice that idea that you only need to learn one skill every 30 days, that takes the pressure off of having to be instantly confident in every area of your life.
Tracy, now is the moment we've all been waiting for. It's the Conversations About Conversations lightning round. And why I say we've been waiting for is because really, I think the real benefit of this episode is going to be hearing from you, the confidence expert, some of your best ideas, or what you like to call on your YouTube channel, pro tips.
Yes.
So here we go.
All right.
Lightning round. Body language when you're confident.
Standing with your shoulders down and away from your ears, and then looking people in the eye. And if it's tricky, as I mentioned, the bridge of your nose. But that posture, I believe, is the unsung hero of confidence.
Next, words to use, words to lose.
Well, a word to lose would be, correct me if I'm wrong. Why would we ask someone to correct us before we even started talking? Words to use would be, let me know if I heard this correctly.
Introductions, 10 seconds of you.
Oh, I believe the 30-second elevator pitch is dead. People have no time or no interest to know what we do for 30 seconds. If you can give a synopsis of who you are in 10 seconds, people are more likely to ask you the second question. Therefore, I call it 10 seconds of you. How to introduce yourself with a hook that gets people to want to know more.
Hedges and validators.
Hedges are words that linguists tell us we use to sound, so we don't sound too aggressive, or we're not coming on too strong. Instead of being straightforward, we hedge. A hedge would be just. I just have a quick question. I'm just circling back. I'm just wondering. That's a way of softening our message, but it doesn't make us seem confident. And the best way around that, if that is your hedge word, is to practice the power of pause. Pause before you're saying, I'm just circling back. Instead say, I'm circling back to see if you've had a chance to make a decision on my proposal.
The sorry syndrome.
In my view, people are apologizing for all kinds of situations that they don't need to apologize for. Now, if you've made a mistake, if there's been a misunderstanding, if you stepped on someone's toe, absolutely apologize. Many times people apologize if they're two people headed for the same door. Oh, sorry about that. Or you could say, after you. Going into a crowded elevator. Oh, sorry, go ahead, sorry. Or you could say, I have a meeting that starts in 5 minutes. Would you mind if I go ahead, please? Thank you very much. There are ways that we can shift I'm sorry to thank you and make all the difference. We might continue this in the lightning round.
Say goodbye.
I have a 4-step process for saying goodbye to someone. If you're in a conversation and you're trying to get out of it and you don't know how to move on, the 4-step process is this. Thank you. Thank you for the conversation. Acknowledge something they said in the conversation that was interesting. I'm glad you had a fabulous vacation. Give a farewell phrase. I know you want to get around and meet some other people here today. and then the farewell gesture, which could be a handshake or a high five or a goodbye. That 4-step process can help you move on in any situation where you need to move from one conversation to the next.
I had heard you in an interview actually point out that people are failing to say goodbye.
Oh, yes.
In general.
That's another one. Now, that is a product of generations or perhaps overuse of phones. I have found that when I'm finished a conversation with some people, they hang up and they don't say, nice to talk to you, or take care, or bye for now. And it feels like we're being hung up on. And I encourage people to literally say goodbye at the end of a phone conversation.
Own your name, claim your name.
Well, the world is flat. People live all over the world, and we work with people from all over the world, and names are complicated. And I feel it's important to honor your name. It could have a special meaning for you. It could be a part of your family history. And if your name is difficult to pronounce, I encourage people to come up with a mnemonic device. I met a woman one time, and she said, my name is Shin Chin Yu. And I said, oh, thank you for saying that. Could you say it again for me, please? I want to get it right. And she pointed to her shin, and then to her chin, and then to me. Shin Chin Yu. And I said, oh, I'll always remember you. That mnemonic device gave us both confidence. She had the confidence saying her name, and I had the confidence to remember it because of that technique that she used.
Conversation kickstarters.
Conversation kickstarters are those magic words. What, how, and tell me more. That can make anybody feel like you really want to talk with them.
Speaking of screens, you have some beliefs about colors on screen.
I do. Light blue looks great on everybody. The color blue shirt you have on, stand tall, that's beautiful. What you want to avoid is all white, because if you wear all white, it can make your skin look darker or wash you out. And if you have on black, that can make it look muddy or bleed a little bit. Red also too is tricky on camera unless you have a scarf or a jacket over it. In general, I have on polka dots today. In general, I think color is fabulous. There's so much darkness behind us and in the world that I think if we can bring some light and bright to the screen, I say bring it on.
Starting meetings at the 5.
I learned that from a client at Zillow. And it means that you start a meeting at 5 minutes after the hour or 35 minutes before the hour. And it gives people a chance to use the restroom or do some push-ups or take their dog outside or get a cup of tea. It makes every 30-minute meeting 25 minutes and gives you 5 minutes in between to catch your breath.
The mindset commute.
Oh, if you miss your commute, if you are working from home or remotely mostly, but you really miss that routine of getting up in the morning and having your coffee and working out, and then driving to work to get your head in a good space, you can walk around the block or the same amount of time it would take you to commute to give yourself the sense that you're growing into your day. That's the mindset commute.
2 more.
Great.
The 10-5 way.
This is a technique that is practiced by Disney and the Ritz-Carlton hotels and Walmart and the Ochsner Medical System in Louisiana. And they tell all their employees, if you're within 10 feet of someone, you're encouraged to look up and make eye contact. And if you're within 5 feet of someone, you're encouraged to smile and say hi. And at the Ochsner Medical System, they found that they got a higher patient referral and higher patient satisfaction reports simply because people were walking down the hallway, looking up and saying hi. Simple, doesn't even need to be completely more verbal than saying hello to someone.
The last in the lightning round is I statements.
I statements. When you use I statements, it keeps people from feeling defensive. if I said to someone, you're always late, or you interrupt all the time, that you puts people back on their heels. But when you say to someone, I prefer that we start the meeting on time. I prefer to finish my statement. I'm almost finished. Hang on one second. I'm almost finished. And then you can finish your statement. Those I statements, I believe, are game changers for a good conversation.
Now we're out of the lightning round. I wanted to share the Dale Carnegie technique about having a name picture.
Oh,
You have shared about the woman who talked about her chin and her chin and her shin.
yeah.
In Dale Carnegie, I created a name picture that was of a white van with an I on the side of it, I van, with a farmer and a barber driving in the front seat. So it was I van far burr.
Oh.
And so that's fun. I thought I would share that.
Do people remember you that way?
Ivan is not a hard name to remember, but they like farmer and barber. Mm-hmm. It's just fun.
Well, when you're meeting a lot of people, even though Ivan isn't a difficult name or Tracy is not a difficult name, many times we can be intimidated because we're meeting many people in one setting. And to give them, it's Ivan, like Ivan, a white van, people think, oh, I'll remember that. And it's a gift. I consider it a courtesy to the other person. It gives them something to hold on to and makes them feel more confident in the process.
I often say Ivan the Terrible as well. And predictably, the other person will say, oh, you're not terrible.
Right.
And then I said, well, yeah, if I was terrible, I couldn't say that I was terrible.
Exactly.
Tracy, what else do you feel like should be a part of this conversation that we're having today?
I want people to know that conversations are the key to living a full life. We learn about other people's preferences and ideologies and passions and interests and careers and families and faith traditions and hobbies and vacations by having conversations. And I know for sure that we all can learn something valuable from every conversation we have. And that's why having meaningful conversations, valuable, fun conversations, can really enrich anyone's life.
As part of your closing statement, what do you want people to do as a result of listening to this conversation?
I want people to consider having a conversation with someone who they didn't think they could talk to. It could be their boss's boss. It could be the CEO of the company. It could be a prospect who they didn't think they could get on the phone with. It could be meeting someone at a networking event. I encourage people to, if you're going to a networking event, look up some people on LinkedIn who you think may be there, and then approach them and say, I just read about your book that was published, or congratulations on winning that award. And when you start a conversation with a compliment, it gets people's attention, and that gives you courage to continue on. Have a conversation with someone you don't think you can. Practice the skills ahead of time, and I think you'll be surprised at the outcome.
Tracy, you are a tremendous resource of ideas and actionable strategies that people can use right away. And because I use a lot of the strategies that you teach and have used a few that I didn't know before that I've learned from watching you on YouTube and listening to other podcasts, they're difference makers. So you are a mover, a shaker, and a difference maker. And so you're the perfect guest for me.
Thank you.
I want to say thank you again to Patrick Galvin for introducing both of us.
Yes.
And I do hope to collaborate with you in the future. The website to find you is confidenceproject.com. And then I want to close by addressing the audience and the person listening to my words right now. Yeah, you. I want to have a conversation with you. I'm building a community of like-minded professionals who truly appreciate the importance of conversations. They want to lead others in meaningful conversations, they want to get better at their conversations. So having guests like Tracy are perfect, people who elevate others in their conversations, because I believe if you want to achieve greatness in this world, you cannot do that without having great conversations. With that, Tracy Hooper and everybody out there, thank you for being a part of this conversation about conversations.
My great pleasure.